Welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook along with Kent Beadle with Paradigm Futures, and we're higher this morning with the exception of the hog market. And Kent, let's talk about grains, a little bounce here. Of course, we've had a big sell-off, but some of this
Mhm.
scoring going into the WASD tomorrow. And let's talk about expectations because the trade is looking for yield cuts in both corn and soybeans. Are we likely to get those with the improvement that we've seen in weather during July and August?
We think that they're going to leave production steady on tomorrow's report. Um, Previously, the USDA would go out and start to do objective yield work in August, and they've pushed that off to September. So they're now basically stuck using the farmer survey and then satellite imagery and their weather model. And the weather model for July obviously shows more significant rainfall through the belt. 3 of the 4 weeks were moderate temperatures. We did have 1 week of hotter temperatures, but we also had that rainfall. And so I tend to think that they're just going to punt and leave things the same in both corn and beans while waiting for September to when they get out and do ear counts and ear sizes and a lot of the objective work that they'll start to do that.
So if they leave yield unchanged, what will they do with demand? Will they leave that unchanged too?
So you've got a couple of things that I think are important there. First of all, your South American production estimates from the experts in South America are lower. Okay. Rosario, Buenos Aires Grain Exchange have the bean crop in Argentina closer to 20 million tons instead of the USDA's 25. CONAB in Brazil has the crop at 154 and a half instead of 156. If the USDA starts making moves to where those experts are, then we may see a small pickup in the potential for export demand. To that point, over the last 6 weeks, we've had new crop exports in beans, close the gap by over 3 million tons from where we were 6 weeks ago relative to year ago sales. We've closed the gap in corn by 1 million tons over those same 6 weeks. It does appear that we're starting to pick up an export program, and we do have to keep in mind that they could make some adjustments out of the Black Sea as well in terms of export capabilities, given the war and the situation that's going on there. So you may see some help on the export side, on the demand side, just due to circumstances that we currently see.
Yeah, plus we do have flooding in the northeastern parts of China, which could lead to a few more corn exports too, right?
I think it could, and of course, the Ukrainians had an 8 million ton, guarantee of supply for the Chinese, and the export corridor allowed them to hit that corridor or that export target last year. I think that business is very suspect, and I certainly think that we have a chance to get some of that business. Or there could be some coming out of South America as well. Granted, they have a bigger corn crop, but if that business goes to China, that might open up some other business here for the U.S.
Yeah. What about wheat? Does USDA punt there as well? Average trade guesses on all wheat production are pretty much unchanged from last month, and ending stocks don't look much different either.
No, market is looking for a very neutral wheat report. Obviously, I think one of the things we're all going to look at is spring wheat yields. We've seen spring wheat conditions over the last month drop fairly significantly, and the expectation would be for a smaller spring wheat crop. Might be offset somewhat by some other parts in North Dakota. I think about the southwest part of that state that has gotten really, really good rainfall over the course of the season, and maybe parts of South Dakota that have gotten some recent rains as well. But in general, we certainly wouldn't expect production to go up. We think it could go down a little bit. They may lower exports a touch. We are behind in wheat exports relative to year over year pace, and so you might end up with a balance sheet that ends up pretty close to unchanged in terms of an ending stocks number.
Yeah, technically, what are you watching? Soybeans kind of held the 100-day moving average, 50% retracement. We've
Yeah.
tested major support in a lot of these markets.
Yeah, we have, and major support is held, and I think that one of the reasons, again, is the recent pickup in export business that we've seen.
Okay.
Um, Technically, I feel like I'm pretty sure that the highs are in, given the weather profile that we've had here so far in August and what the forecasts look like. I do think that the warmer trend in the forecast going out on the 11 to 15 day isn't necessarily going to hurt production at all. It might actually allow for fields to be a little more ready to be worked or harvested when that time comes. But it still looks like a really good a really good fall here for growers in terms of being able to get out and get some things done.
Yeah. So cattle market, back to the plus side here. Is the correction over with? Boxes have improved. That seems to be helping out. And what are cash ideas for this week?
Yeah, well, cash ideas have been mostly just steady. I'm leaning towards steady to better. Wouldn't surprise me to be up $1 again. It feels, the marketplace feels firm. We'd gotten ourselves overbought. We were due for a correction. When we had our correction, we moved sideways for, better part of a week, week and a half. And now the underlying tightness in supply is starting to show up in the fundamentals here once again, and the market's moving higher, and the trend is still higher. And until we do something to break that trend, I think we have to expect higher cattle prices coming down the pipe.
Yeah, so we'll retest the highs, you think, here, but we're going to get into tighter numbers as we get into fourth quarter. So this thing could get pretty explosive moving into the latter part of the year, don't you think?
Well, it could, and of course, once you get into the latter part of the year, you start to bring weather into the
Sure.
whole equation as well. And if you get winter storms or something like that, that's where your sort of explosiveness could come from.
Seasonal pressure on hogs here on cash and cutout values. So we've been kind of rolling over here, but how much lower do you think we can go, or how much of a correction will we see considering we have such big discounts, especially in the deferreds?
Yeah, well, we have big discounts in the deferreds, but that's pretty typical for this time of the year. We've been hearing that the hog supplies are relatively plentiful right now, and that there's been a shortage of barn space. We are anticipating pickup in slaughter and a pickup in supply. We're thinking another $3 to $5 down would be reasonable expectation for this correction.
Yeah. And CPI numbers out this morning, a little bit below expectations, a little surprising considering with what energy prices have been doing.
Yeah, that's correct. The energy price up, maybe 16% over that same time period. A lot of other things have gotten a little bit weaker. And of course, all you have to do is look at, grain prices, for example, over that time period are definitely a little lower. We think that the Fed is going to take a look at these numbers and more than likely think about pausing at their next meeting. We can't rule out another interest rate hike or one more interest rate hike, but it does feel as though the economy is slowing enough for them to maybe to take a look at letting things play out for another month. We do look at these energy prices, and we would note that if energy prices continue to be elevated as they have been, that's one of the threats to the CPI, and it's certainly one of the threats to the economy that could slow things a little bit further ultimately, but could keep inflation high enough to where the Fed might actually want to move with at least one more interest rate hike sometime in the future.
All right. We'll see how aggressive they want to be. Thanks for joining us. Ken Vita with Paradigm Futures. That's Markets Now.